See.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Today, we're going to talk about design tokens and more specifically, how we can cut costs and save time when building at scale. So let's just jump straight into it. So the goal of the webinar is make you mindful of the operational benefits of design tokens. And I think the best way we can start is actually trying to define what are design tokens, right? What is the definition? So at its core, design tokens are just design properties stored as variables. They help us ensure consistency across different platforms and different products. They allow us to bridge the gap between design and development. And most importantly, they allow us to capture our design decisions. So let's see what I mean by that. So let's kind of break it down into more simple terms. I like to think of it as a box of crimes, right? So we have a box of curated colors. So we're trying to limit ourselves with these colors only, just because we don't want to use all the colors available in the world. We want to kind of limit ourselves and use only this curated set of colors for our UI or our drawings, whatever, however you want to take it. So now imagine if we take this box and we kind of attach a label to each color. So this is what I call core or primitive layer. And so we kind of take it for what it is, right? So we're basically saying that the orange crayon is orange, the green crayon is green, and this is what it's all about. And this this core token layer, we're just kind of taking things as what they are. So we're just labeling colors now. Things will get a bit more interesting when we introduce semantic layer. So now, instead of just labeling things for what they are, we're actually attaching a meaning to them. So in the name, we're kind of trying to communicate the usage. So for example, here we have orange being transformed into sky clear evening. Dark blue, on the other hand, is sky clear midnight, right? Green is now field, grass, midday. You get the gist. We're essentially having a structured way or introducing a logic to our naming conventions. And so this could be, button, primary, on hover. So it's essentially that. And then, of course, there's a third layer that I'm not going to be talking about today, which is a bit more component-specific layer. And these type of tokens are usually used maybe very rarely, if maybe 5 or 10% of the times. So we're only strictly reserving those for very specific use cases. Generally speaking, these two layers usually power 80 to 90% of our UI. So now that we got that out of our way, let's talk about what kind of problems do design tokens solve. So the first one is obviously consistency across platforms. We already talked about a bit about it. It's just because we have this shared language and things are consistently named in design files and in the code base, we have this consistency across different platforms as well. So consistency across platforms is a big one. But then we have theming and customization. So imagine if you were to introduce a dark mode with design tokens. It really makes it more cost efficient and easier to do that because you already have your set of colors. And now we're just saying we have one column for light mode and then another column for dark mode, and we're just kind of remapping those values or inverting the colors depending whether it's light or dark mode. It's also very relevant when we're talking about white labeled software. So if you have white labeled partners, right, we could have different themes per customer. So each client would have their own themed UI with its own unique look and feel. Another big advantage is obviously faster development and design times. And this is simply because we're kind of limiting ourselves with limiting the choice or amount of defined styles that we have. So because of that, we're just simply reducing the decision fatigue because we have less things to choose from. Better collaboration. This is a pretty big one, and it's because we have a shared language between design and development. Things are named the same way, so we don't have to do this back and forth, which in a lot of times, in a lot of instances, happens pretty often. Faster UI refactoring now, because if considering the fact that, let's say, our product is wired up with a token system and maybe 80 or 90% of the UI is covered with tokens, like a redesign or UI refactoring becomes way faster just because we need to change a value in our token system, and then it kind of propagates or cascades down to our entire digital product portfolio. Cross-platform delivery. Personally, I'm a big fan of this, and it's just because kind of in its nature, design tokens are agnostic. So they usually live in a JSON file, hosted in your Git repository. And because it's just simply JSON file and every data point is just, every variable or data point has a unique style property, we're able to transform that into pretty much whatever. This could be your CSS variables for web. We could maybe transform it into iOS, like Swift constants for iOS, same for Android. So you get the picture. And lastly, documentation and governance. And this is because a well-structured, clearly named token system can be a documentation on its own. So we kind of already covered that with a current box example. So if you can get a sense of what this token should be used for just by looking at a name, it's you could say that it acts as a documentation. It stands as a documentation on its own, right? So it really helps to standardize this design language, and it really helps to kind of govern your design system. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of the benefits or the problems design tokens solves. Probably there is more to it, but these are it's just probably the most or level items. So I guess we approached the interesting part of this webinar, and this is probably why you joined in the first place. Yeah, let's talk about the return on investment. So during the preparation of this webinar, we came across lots of different metrics around design tokens and design systems in general. The truth is, most of these numbers are very context specific. So it's really hard to use them as a reference. They indicate that design tokens or design systems work in general, and it brings value to any organization, but every organization is unique, and your reality might not be reflected by these numbers because, again, your organization might be unique and it will have different needs that need to be met. So instead of focusing on specific numbers, let's focus on what exactly brings the return on investment and why, so you can decide for yourself. Before we begin, the thing that I want you to understand is that building a design token system it's a long game, it's a long-term investment. So if you were to make a small UI change now, or maybe it's a redesign project, that'll obviously cost you less compared to the cost of building the entire design token system. But I think it's very important to frame the narrative around the ongoing cost. It's kind of equivalent to, having a road full of potholes and then, taking each pothole and filling it in, We're not really looking at the underlying issues. We're just kind of putting out fire. So it's very important, obviously, to look at the underlying issues. And that's the best analogy I could find for it. So anyway, let's say you've decided to repave the entire road instead of keep filling in potholes. You know that it's the right thing to do, but you're still wondering when is it going to pay off. To answer this question, I want to use a fictional example. Imagine a scenario where we run a company that has 3 different digital products. They all technically follow the same design, but things aren't consistent anyway. A simple visual tweak, well, that needs to be made in 3 different places. And every time the brand evolves, design changes, it kind of turns into a duplicated work. Now, in theory, all 3 apps should feel part of the same family. Same brand, same personality, same visual language. But in practice, keeping things aligned across can be pretty daunting and a hard task. So let's say eventually you're tired of it and you want to find something more sustainable. You decide to invest in a design token system. You build it, decide to roll it out, and you pick maybe one product as a pilot project that you'd like to start with. So this is, I guess the best way to do it is just to start looking at our initial investment. But this is not the investment in budget or in money, but more so in time. So to get our design token system up and running, we'll need 400 hours, 300 designer and 100 developer hours. That is kind of equivalent to 50 full work days. So for this presentation, we chose to measure return on investment strictly in terms of time saved. And the reason for that is it's because it's easier to track, it's easier to compare, and most importantly, it's easier to measure. So going back to our pilot project. So we chose our React app, and this is usually we want to do things gradually when we're dealing with big organizations. So we don't want in the organization-wide change to happen instantly, right? We want to test the ground first, and maybe we choose one app so we can see whether it works there before kind of rolling it out to the entire organization. So in our case, our best candidate is our main web application, which is powered by React. So let's visualize our, our progression using this linear chart. This is where we are at the moment, right? If you're looking at the left bottom corner, you can see that we've just launched our token system. At the top, we have our break-even line. The goal, of course, is to reach it as fast as possible, so we can start showcasing some positive results to our stakeholders. Unfortunately, it's easier said than done, because in year one, things will feel quite slow, like really slow. You've launched your token system, but the payoff isn't going to be instant. And that's because building the system is just the start of the process. The real return only begins once people start using it. So in those first months, your team will be learning. They'll be adjusting to new workflows. They'll have to update some of their habits and probably break a few things along the way. And that's perfectly okay. It's part of the process. So we might not see any measurable returns right away. In fact, it might feel like a cost. But it's important to understand that behind the scenes, a lot of foundational work is happening, especially in those first 6 months. So during the first 6 months, adoption starts to grow slowly, and our system starts becoming part of everyday dev and design routines. This is where we start seeing the curve shift a little. So momentum is about to kick in, and eventually we'll start seeing real compounding returns. But of course, as of now, we still have a long way to go before we break even. We're working towards it. So at this point, there's one thing we should start paying attention to, and it's our design token usage rate. So at the top right corner, we can see that our React app is highlighted, and you can see this progress bar, this purple progress bar. It generally, we use it to indicate usage rate, and you can think of a usage rate as is just how much of the UI or how much of the front end is actually wired up to the token system, instead of just plainly using hard-coded values. So the higher the usage rate, the more we're centralizing our design decisions. And that means fewer inconsistencies, fewer manual updates, and less design debt creeping back in. Well, it also means that every feature change, whether it's a redesign, brand update, or new accessibility requirement, will be exponentially easier to roll out. We're kind of setting ourselves up to scale with confidence. So think of usage rate as your early indicator of return on investment. The more system is actually being used, the faster we'll see the curve being bending upwards. So as we approach the end of the year one, the usage rate for our web application has reached 80%. Now, have we broken even yet? We're close, but we're not quite there yet. And that's okay, because this year wasn't about immediate returns. What we achieved is even, I'd say, maybe even something more important, and that's a solid foundation. We've proven that the system works, that it can be adopted by a real team, a real product, and can actually deal with real constraints. So This first year was just investment. It's about investing in process, consistency, and future speed. The time that we will save in the future. So the ROI curve is just the beginning. It's kind of starting to bend, and now we're in the perfect position to expand the impact across the rest of our digital product portfolio. So let's stretch this chart so we can see what's there to come for us in year 2. This is where things will start getting a little bit more interesting. So for year 2, we have 3 main priorities. First, we're redesigning our React app, and this time the entire redesign is going to run on top of our token system. This will include also built-in dark mode support, which is a great example of how tokens make complex themes manageable and scalable. Second, we're beginning to wire up our iOS and Android apps. We're not going all in just yet, but we're starting to replace platform-specific styles with token-based values. Think of it as laying down the tracks. We're preparing those apps to benefit from the system just like we did with our React app in year 1. And of course, third, our North Star, we're aiming to break even. That's kind of our financial tipping point, where the time and the resources we've invested finally match the value we've gained. So this year is more about expansion and payoff, taking the foundation that we laid in year 1 and pushing it across our entire ecosystem. Let's fast forward to the end of the year and see what we actually able to achieve. So the React app is fully redesigned and running on tokens, including full support for dark mode, which shipped with little to no additional engineering effort thanks to the groundwork we laid earlier. Now, our mobile teams have started adopting tokens, and we are already seeing the benefits: faster implementation, more visual consistency, and shared design language across the platform. Lastly, we were able to break even. And not only that, we're able to record 135% of return on investment. That means that at the end of year 2, we managed not only to break even, but make more than double the time we invested initially. So from this point forward, the token system isn't just a cost, it's delivering measurable return. We're spending less time on duplication, less time fixing inconsistencies, and we're actually able to spend more time on what matters, building new things. So let's move on and see what happens in year 3. Now that React app has been fully redesigned and is running smoothly on tokens, it's time to bring that same level of polish and consistency to our iOS and Android apps. So both mobile apps are getting a full visual overhaul, not just to look nicer, but more so to align with the new aesthetic we've established with our previous project on React. So thanks to the foundation we've laid, with tokens already wired up in both apps, we're not starting from scratch. We're simply applying the same design decisions, just on different apps, right? Different platforms. So this year is all about bringing visual harmony across different platforms and pushing the system from mostly adopted to fully adopted. By the end of year 3, we expect every product in our portfolio not only to share the brand language, but be powered by the same underlying design infrastructure. So Fast forward to the end of the year, we've successfully redesigned both of our mobile apps, and finally, they feel more like siblings than distant cousins. So we achieved the visual consistency, and in general, visual inconsistencies across platforms are way down. The time to implement new features is way faster. Design decisions flow more naturally because we have the token system to guide us through the decision making, and yeah, nothing less, at least less, is being lost in translation now with the help of our token system. I guess the most important thing here is that we kind of took our system from being a tool for the only for the web team to a shared platform used by all of our product teams across our organization. And that's kind of the biggest milestone of ER3. And of course, as adoption matures, we're seeing return on investment grow even further, 215% to be exact. And of course, from now on, the sky is the limit. So the more products you will keep introducing to your digital portfolio, the more people you'll hire, the more return you'll eventually be able to get out of it. So I think that's the most important thing to note here. So this obviously correlates with scale. And then the main takeaway from this segment is that building a system is only half a job. The other half is making sure that it's actually being used by your designers and developers. So depending on the organization size, and of course, design system maturity, enterprises can generally expect to break even within a relatively short period, often even in year one. So we're kind of the last segment of our webinar. And, this is where we kind of summarize all of the findings that we went through during the previous segment, and we'll kind of summarize and break down these numbers. So this section is about giving you a clear view on the investment we made and how it scales across teams and what the actual returns look like. So let's revisit our initial investment, right? We had 400 hours, which equals to 50 full work days. Then our time-based ROI summary. So in year one, our ROI is minus 20%. That means that we lost time. So we lost 80 hours. And this is important. It's important to know that all of these numbers are relative to our initial investment. So 400 hours, just to make it clear. But yeah, in year one, we lost time, and it's completely normal just because we built a new system, and we had to, all these different product teams had to, take their time to adopt it and wire it up to their code bases, and along the way, probably things were, in some places were broken and had to be fixed all over. So it's just, it's a process, and it takes time. And in some instances, it's completely normal to lose time compared to relatively to your initial investment, especially in year one. We're trying to set ourselves up for the future scale. So losing time in year one, it's completely okay. Now, in year two, we're actually saving over 520 hours, more than an entire year's worth of work for a single person, of course. And those 520 hours is it's a big chunk of time. You could use it for additional design project maybe. So again, the whole point of design token system is just remove the tedious, annoying, repetitive work, so we can actually focus on more important things. And then if we look at year 3, we have 215% of ROI, and that equals to 860 hours of time saved. So that's the compounding value of having a shared system that everyone actually uses it. Now, if you're pitching for your leadership, if you wanted to, you could potentially convert the hours of work saved into money based on salaries, or more specifically, hourly rates. And that would roughly land us here. So again, if we look at year 1, we're kind of losing on roughly 20,000 Danish kroner. Now, year 2, we're kind of gaining 150 Danish kroner in time. And then same goes for year 3, we're gaining 250,000 of Danish kroner. So yeah, that's about it. And now we're, I guess we can just jump to a Q&A. We'll see if any of you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer them. Any questions so far?
Not so far.
It's good. Makes my life easier.
Because everything is clear. Do you think, like, from the first year, where you don't see any like return on investment of the like lost hours, do you think that's like the issue in like many companies, that they want to see results quickly?
Of course.
Yeah.
We're all humans, so whenever we invest into something, it's normal for us to want the results as quickly as possible. Yeah. And that's why I was trying to frame it as a long-term investment. So in a lot of instances, if we're talking about companies like Shopify, obviously they can do it faster. So they might be able to break even in year 1, just because they already have a mature design system. And so that really helps. Yeah. But for most of the companies that don't necessarily have a mature design system in place, it will take a bit of groundwork. And it's just, again, you'll build a system, and that's on its own big achievement. But the other part of the work is making people use it. And when we're dealing with bigger organizations, the more people will have to convince that it's the right thing to use, the harder it becomes. Yeah. So it is an issue, I guess, to answer your question. But yeah, it's only an issue if you're like expecting short-term success, and you shouldn't. No, you really shouldn't. So if you do, you're kind of like setting yourself up for failure, right? So it's better if you're trying to get some funding from your leadership for this brilliant new initiative. It's always better to be realistic. Yeah. And be like, okay.
Yeah. Do you have like any recommendations on that? like how to pitch that in for.
Again, being very realistic, and it's always at least that's how I do things. I prefer to under promise and over deliver. That's how it works. That's how we try to do it also with our client work, right? So it's just if you promise them based on some success story or blog that you read about, how Shopify was able to completely redesign their admin platform in a matter of weeks. That might set some false expectations, because let's be real, or how similar you are to Shopify's organization that that values design and that has this mature design system. They're very tech savvy. So if you're not like Shopify or Uber or Airbnb, maybe it's just being realistic with yourself and trying to. It's completely normal. It's completely normal not to break even in year one. So it's just a matter of setting the right expectation.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, thank you. Let's see, we actually got a question here. So thank you, Modestas, for the presentation. That was very insightful. My question would be, what strategies help keep design tokens clean and scalable over time?
What strategies?
Yeah,
well, I guess, again, the design tokens is something that usually all the design systems, right? We look at design systems as a product because sorry, I'm going to be looking at you guys. We look at design system as a product because it constantly evolves, and we have to evolve it over time. Whereas design tokens, it's more so a project. So we have a starting point and we have an end point, and then after that, it's kind of set and forget situation. You might revisit it once in a while, but it's not going to be continuous iterations. So that being said, it's very important to get things right in terms of the naming straight from the beginning. And by naming, I mean just because there are multiple ways, multiple logic to name things. And if you take a look at different design systems, they will have their own vocabulary. So I guess it's very important to do a workshop internally and agreeing on this naming algorithm or naming logic, naming rules, making sure that it's something that can be understood by your entire organization. And I think getting the naming right is the most valuable thing. It's going to set you up for success later on, because it's just when things are familiar, it's easier to use. If it's easier to use, it's easier to adopt, right? It's just it's simple. Probably there's more to it, but if I had to mention one thing, it would be getting the naming right.
nice.
And of course, another thing, just trying to predict your future needs, because that's also important to consider. So when you're scoping your token system, it's important to think what will happen down the line. So are there any talks in your organization of potentially supporting dark mode in the future, right? Stuff like that. Technical considerations is also important to consider in this initial building phase, just because we want the system to be scalable and we want it to cater for our needs 2 years or 3 or 5 years from today. So it's important to consider that as well.
Great. Okay, we got another question here from Frederick. Love it, man. What's the ideal team size to start introducing design tokens?
In this question, it's it really depends, right? So because obviously the headcount matters, and I'd say anything if you're more than 10 developers, it's already useful. But it also depends on how many products you have, how many different code bases you have to deal with. Because if that number is higher but the headcount is lower, it's still going to be relevant for you to implement a thing like a token system, just because it helps with a cross-platform consistency. Even maybe you have, instead of 15 developers, you have 10 developers, say 6 of them work on the web app, and then maybe you have 2 each working on iOS and Android apps. So in general, it's really hard to pinpoint the exact number, but I'd say anything more than 10, I think it is something that you can already start looking into. It's a very nuanced question.
Okay, so wait like 2 more minutes, see if we get any more questions.
Sounds good.
Otherwise, maybe time to wrap it up. So, think your last questions.
Yeah.
Do you have any last words that you want to add? Maybe quick recommendation or anything for those watching?
Well, my recommendation to if you could relate to any of those problems that I've pinpointed earlier, start reading, start familiarizing yourself with the design tokens. Obviously, this short webinar is not going to answer all of your questions. So just start learning, start reading, and try to understand what value exactly they can bring to your organization. And then also, because it's a very niche and specific technology that we're talking about, it's also worth noting that if you don't have in-house expertise to carry something out, to carry out something like that, it's also worth maybe getting a consultant to help you out if you were to start a project like that. Just because it's there's lots of different ways of doing the same thing. So it's just if you were to do this initiative, it's important to have all the necessary information in front of you. If you're able to obtain it yourself, that's great. Crunch those documentation side from open source design systems. But if you're not too big on that, you can always get some help from some consultants or people that are very much into this technology. And another thing to note, these principles, you don't have to necessarily start, especially if you're a small team, you don't have to start with this big token system, right? You don't have to transform it into multiple formats if you're only working with one app, right? But the principles, right, of semantic naming, you can carry those into your Tailwind project, and instead of using all bunch of primitive classes like primary 600, primary 700, it's very easy to get lost in those. Start defining some semantics for the colors that you're using most often. Same goes with your typography styles, etc. So it's just that the thinking that the thinking and the approach can be translated into any technology. The design tokens is just the infrastructure that helps us to distribute it across platforms. But if you're not dealing with multiple platforms, you can use whatever you're working on, whether it's Android app, you just write an XML constants, name them properly, define the semantic usage, and then you're kind of ready to go. And then down the line, if you introduce something new to your digital product portfolio, of course, you can take a look at how can this infrastructure be scaled across. But I guess that's pretty much it.
Great. And no more questions, so hopefully everything is very clear.
I mean, I don't blame people for not having questions. It's a very niche topic, so it's hard to come up with a question. But thank you, Filipa, for setting everything up, and thank you for reminding me to look at the camera.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining, and have a beautiful day.